Nick, what's going on?
Charles, what's going on?
I'm excited.
Me too, dude. This is our first episode. Episode one of Just Visualize Roundtable.
The Charles and Nick Roundtable.
Roundtable.
Yeah, we have no table,
Not yet.
not a physical one. But
Visualize one, just like right here, right in front of us.
well, we're here.
But we're here.
We're here.
We're here. We're ready to kick it off. Answer some questions, have some guests eventually, and just shooting the S, man. I don't know if we can
Shooting the S.
shooting the S.
We allowed to curse on this podcast?
Nah.
We make the rule.
We take the rule that
True. Okay.
We're family friendly here.
Yeah. No,
We want all ages to listen, so shooting the S.
shooting the S. I like it.
I like it. I like it a lot. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So first, before I get into introducing myself, let's talk about what this podcast is, right? It's the Charles and Nick Roundtable. We want to discuss fitness topics, right?
Yes.
Our core mission with this podcast is to blend training, nutrition, as well as mindset, because the psychological aspect of your fitness journey matters a lot as well. So, we want to teach you how to train smarter, stay consistent, and just experience long-term progress. So that's the core mission of this podcast. And a little bit about myself. I'll be turning 31 next month, and I've been training consistently for nearly 14 years. So I started training when I was about 17. And the last 6 or so years have been really focused on bodybuilding. The first 7.5 to 8 were really just a mix of a lot of different things. A little bit of bodybuilding, a little bit of suboptimal powerlifting, plyometrics, calisthenics, circuit training, all different types of training like that. But yeah, the last 6 years have been really focused on bodybuilding. And I've competed in 8 bodybuilding competitions. This year I competed in 4, and I won my pro card in the AMBF. Also got my first class win in the OCB.
Huge.
In terms of my educational background, I have a Bachelor of Science degree in kinesiology from Penn State, class of 2018. I also have a strength and conditioning certification with the NSCA. Been certified with them for a little while. And I have been a personal trainer for about 8 years. That's about it. I don't want to get too deep into that. Let's pass it off to Nick.
Sure. My introduction was way shorter. Way shorter. So starting off with personal training. I've been doing personal training for about 4 months. I started around, I would say, mid-August. I didn't decide to be a personal trainer until after my last bodybuilding show. I'm trying to eventually transition into this as a full-time job. I really enjoy being in here, working with Charles, helping clients not only achieve their fitness goals, but absolutely crush their fitness goals. There's a major difference. And so far, the clients I have been making some real significant progress in the time that we've been working together. And I've only been training for about 4 months, but I can't imagine, 2 years, 5 years from now, it's gonna be great. My bodybuilding background. 2025 was my first year competing as a bodybuilder, and it was the hardest and greatest things I've ever done. I have a wrestling background, so in terms of like dieting, it's 2 totally different things. With the crash dieting, like not eating and drinking water for a couple days, and then just
For wrestling.
yeah, and then after the match, just scarfing my face with food. I would literally not eat food or drink water for 2-3 days.
It's brutal.
And then as soon as I would step on the scale and they would log my weight, I would go straight to Wawa and just eat anything in sight. And then after my match, I would just like stuff my face, just scarf my mouth with food. I wrestled 113, 115, and then I would step on the mat like 130 pounds. Yeah, dude, it was crazy. So jumping in the world of bodybuilding and like dieting like consistently Monday through Sunday, hitting macro goals, calories. It was a bit of a. It wasn't like it was. It was challenging, but it's not something I wasn't used to. I was used to not really eating, but consistently being in a deficit was definitely a challenge, and being mindful of what I eat. My bodybuilding background, I did 3 shows. I did 2 OCB shows and 1 AMBF show. In both OCB shows, I placed 3rd in novice and 4th in open. And in the AMBF, I won my bodybuilding class and got 2nd overall. Just fell very short of the pro card. And I start prep in about 2 weeks. So this will be like my 2nd bodybuilding season. Just trying to chase that pro physique, not even that pro carb. Like I want that pro physique, and just, man, I learned a lot about myself throughout this journey. Just pushing myself beyond my limits, thinking that, I can't do it. Just wanted to opening that fridge and just eat. When I was lifting, just like, man, I don't want to do this, but you gotta persevere and push through the hard times. That's what makes a pro, and that's what makes a pro physique. So I'm really excited to jump into this new season. I'm really excited to, do more shows with Charles. That AMBF show was great. So just having my teammate next to me, really motivated me to really just crush it on stage. So I just watch out, Class A.
Watch out, Class A. So only 4 months experience with personal training. However, you have a lot of valuable experience and you have a good background, right, with wrestling, and then bodybuilding is no joke. But let's get to the main point of this episode. So a few days ago, we posted a Q&A. We want our followers to ask us some questions, and that's what we're going to focus on today. We are just going to do a Q&A episode. So I have all of the questions on my phone. Sweet. We'll try to get through as many of them as we can today. We'll just see how we're doing with time.
Cool.
So, first question I have has to do with intermittent fasting. It's a simple question. Intermittent fasting or no? What are your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
So there's obviously 2 sides of the spectrum. People are like, yes, it's great, I recommend it. And then people are like, no, it's stupid. With this in particular, it's not better or worse. It just depends on your goals specifically as an individual. If your goal is fat loss and you don't mind eating less food in early in the day, and if you don't mind like lifting earlier, like if you lift early in the day and you don't mind eating during the day, like if you don't mind eating less food while you're lifting earlier in the day, I would say it's definitely worth it. However, if your goal is to increase muscle growth and strength, and you get a little irritable and you have low energy and you get a tad bit dizzy because you're not eating as much, I wouldn't recommend it. But like I said, there isn't no like right or wrong. It's not better or worse. It just depends on the individual's goal.
Yeah, case dependent. And I think a lot of people who are asking about intermittent fasting, at least in my experience, they're generally asking with the goal of fat loss in mind. And we know that if you want to drop body fat, well, what do we need if we want to drop body fat? We need to be in a calorie deficit. So intermittent fasting is basically a potential tool that you can use to put you in a deficit. Now, it depends on your mindset going into it, because some people think it's the intermittent fasting itself that can cause fat loss. If you are scarfing down thousands and thousands of calories the second half of the day and you put yourself in a calorie surplus, then guess what? The intermittent fasting isn't going to do much for you. It's not going to make much of a difference. But if you can implement it into your lifestyle comfortably and on a consistent basis, and it's a way that keeps you in a calorie deficit, and you actually have some enjoyment with doing that method, then by all means, go for it. Now, personally, it's not something that I do. I like to eat as soon as I wake up. This food it's one of the first things that I think of when I wake up. I'm absolutely ready to eat breakfast or at least get some sort of calories and protein in me. But a lot of people are successful with it. So it's really a case-dependent thing. I just don't want people to think that just because they intermittent fast, they're automatically going to lose body fat. The primary thing for fat loss is a deficit. Intermittent fasting can potentially make it easier to be in a deficit.
Absolutely. Especially because I feel like a lot of adults and growing adults, they're really like they try to sneak in as much sleep as possible before they got to get up and get ready for work. So one of the first things they cut out to get those extra couple minutes of sleep is to skip out on breakfast or have like a light snack, but that's not technically intermittent fasting for eating just a little bit. But I know a lot of people, especially, working at a school and being around students, a lot of students skip out on breakfast and, work throughout the morning, and then they'll save their appetite for lunch. So if you're already used to not eating breakfast and like keeping your calories under control throughout the day, I feel like properly implementing it is the key to getting the most out of intermittent fasting.
Yeah. And the fasting can sometimes backfire, right? Because what happens after long periods of restriction for some people? You just eat, right? You skip out on breakfast, maybe intuitively, because you just wake up and not give yourself that much time for work.
Yeah.
I think we all do that every once in a while, maybe a little more than once in a while. And you get to the end of the day and you are just ravenous. And, I mentioned it earlier, you potentially scarf down thousands and thousands of calories. And you're going to, it could be a good chance that you give into your craving. So it can definitely backfire. But yeah, like I said, if you can properly implement it into your routine and it's something that you like at least a little bit, give it a try.
Yeah, I definitely feel like me personally, I wouldn't want to fast because I would just strategically space out my meals throughout the day. So like I'm not like hungry for a portion of the day, and then when I eat, I'm just like, no, I could dabble in a little bit more because I didn't eat that much, early in the day. But I got a question. So let's say you sleep for 8 hours. Yeah, aren't you technically fasting because you didn't eat for 8 hours and then you're extending that period of time?
Yeah,
early in the day. So I if that's the case, I would just eat breakfast because you're fasting in your sleep. You're not eating.
Technically, we all intermittent fast. We all intermittent fast at least for a short period of time, and that's why the first meal of the day is called breakfast.
Right.
We're breaking the fast. We're breaking the fast, simply put.
The fast has been broken.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my take on it.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Any other thoughts, or should we move on?
Eat breakfast.
Eat breakfast if you want. If you want to eat breakfast. Okay. All right. This is a really good question. Okay. If you had to pick one small diet change that makes a major difference over time, what would it be?
This I actually put some thought into it.
Yeah.
And basically, I was thinking about how I was before I really got into like nutrition and tracking my meals and like really like studying the nutrition facts, tracking not only my calories but my nutrients for the day. Definitely prioritizing protein in every meal. If you can build your meals around protein, that goes a long way over time. Really what you should be asking yourself is, instead of asking yourself, what should I not eat? You should ask yourself, where's the protein in my meals, right? Because the benefits of protein is that overall it improves body composition because it preserves muscle, it increases fat loss, and due to protein's high thermic effect, you're going to burn calories slightly. Like your calorie burn is going to slightly increase due to its high thermic effect. So really what you should be asking yourself is, where where's the protein in all my meals? So what I would do, a small change over time, definitely prioritize protein in every meal you eat. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, figure out where the protein is in those meals and how you can squeeze them in. That way, in between those meals, you could fit in your carb sources, your fat sources, or you want to squeeze in more protein, can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And that's actually what I was going to say. I was going to talk about protein as well because, it has a high thermic effect. Which means that it burns more calories compared to consuming carbohydrates and fats. And carbohydrates and fats are incredibly important. So I'm not saying don't eat those. All I'm saying is if you have, let's say, two people who are pretty much equal and their goal is fat loss. Let's just say they both eat 2,000 calories. One person eats a low protein diet and the other person eats a high protein diet. Well, the person that eats a high protein diet is going to end up likely burning a little bit more body fat over time compared to the low protein diet individual.
Yeah.
And in these individuals, everything else is the same but the protein. So protein has a high thermic effect. This just means that it just takes a few extra calories to essentially digest and metabolize it compared to carbohydrates and fat sources. And the other thing is, and I'm going to talk about fat loss a lot because that seems to be the goal of many people that come to us, right? When you're in a fat loss phase, you're going to deal with some level of hunger, right? Varying degrees of hunger throughout the fat loss phase. And you have to be willing to deal with a little bit of hunger. You shouldn't be ravenous, but generally a higher protein diet is going to be more satiating than a low to moderate protein diet.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Not only that, but the leaner you go, the less calories it is. So you get more for less. So you get a higher volume at lower calories. So that can help kind of tame your cravings a bit and tame your hunger because you're eating more for less calories. So one thing though that a lot of like labels do, so let's pick on peanut butter for instance. Yeah, peanut butter, as you all know, is an awful source for protein. Yeah. However, Skippy has protein peanut butter. Yeah, but it's and they have it on the label 5 grams of protein, and people are like, what? 5 grams of protein in peanut butter? However, it's 210 calories per tablespoon. Yeah. So
horrible ratio.
It's a horrible ratio.
More at 5. I think it's like 8, but it's still
terrible. And like one little trick that I like to do to calculate if something is a good source of protein is I take the calories and grams of protein per serving, and I multiply the grams of protein per serving by 10. So just adding a 0 at the end.
Yeah.
And I compare that number to the calories per serving. So if we're taking 5 or 8 grams of protein per serving at 210 calories, 50 and 80 is less than 210. So it's not a good source of protein.
Yeah.
That number is greater than the calories per serving. It's a good source of protein. So like the yogurt that I eat, for instance, it's 90 calories a cup for 15 grams of protein. So 150 is greater than 90. So that's a good source of protein.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I kind of have my own sort of method in determining if a food is a high protein source or at least a moderately high amount of protein, right? So for every 100 calories, you probably want to get around 7 grams of protein.
Yeah.
I wouldn't consider that high protein, but it's at least a pretty sufficient amount. So if you have a 200 calorie snack or meal, hopefully you're not only eating a 200 calorie meal, but just to get the point across, if you have something that's 200 calories, I wouldn't consider it high in protein or at least moderately high in protein unless there's 14 grams of protein in that.
Absolutely.
And yeah, stuff like that, like with the peanut butter labeling, with companies throwing high protein on everything, it just drives me insane. Another example are the protein Pop-Tarts. Just had those a few weeks ago. Not a good protein source though. They taste pretty good. Not a good protein source though, because a pack of Pop-Tarts, it's 400 calories and it's 10 grams of protein for those protein Pop-Tarts.
Jeez.
Regular Pop-Tarts for a pack, I think it's like 4 or 5. So it's about double the protein, but it's still a horrible ratio. I would not consider that a high protein snack.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, 10 grams of protein is about 40 calories because there's about 4 calories per gram of protein.
Yeah.
So protein only makes up about 10% of the Pop-Tart. That's horrible. That's like the bare minimum that you need just to like survive and for your body to function the way it should. It's like that borderline, right? So
Absolutely.
not even close to high protein, and there are a lot of examples, not just the peanut butter labeling, not just the Pop-Tarts. There are plenty of examples. You go to a grocery store, they're just slapping on high protein on so many different foods, and then if you just look at their nutrition facts, you'll be able to tell if it's actually high in protein, because protein is so trendy right now, and it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because of how they're marketing it. Because it's so trendy right now, companies are essentially taking advantage of that with marketing, and like I said, they're just slapping high protein on everything. And almost everything has at least like a gram of protein in it, and they're just throwing it in there.
It's crazy, man. And especially if you don't track your calories, you don't know how much you're eating. So you may think like, it says high in protein, so I must be getting, a decent amount of protein. But if you're not tracking your calories and you're not tracking your nutrients, man, like your carbs and fats are going to be through the roof compared to your protein. And that's where people are like, well, what am I doing wrong? And it shouldn't, if you're trying to lose fat, the habit of tracking your food and tracking your nutrients is critical, because you need to know what you're putting inside of you to see if you're making changes. So like, if you feel like you're eating healthy, you're not tracking anything, how do you know if you're truly eating healthy and if your body is getting the correct nutrients to benefit from fat loss? So don't get tripped up by those labels. They're trying to get you. They're trying to keep you fat.
They're trying to get you. Some of them are. Maybe most of them.
Most of them. I would say it's like a 75, 25, 75 trying to get you 25. Like, hey, I want you to be outfit.
Yeah. Now I have to go into the stores and find out an exact percentage. Is it 75, 25? I got to go through every single food in Acme ShopRite. I'm not actually going to do that.
It's definitely worth just like spending the extra time, like turning the label around and like reading the nutrition label. Like there's more to the product than the expiration date. Because like before I really got into this, all I cared about is if it expires or not, or like am I going to eat this in time before it expires?
Right. Wait, Monty, is this going to be fresh?
Right. So like just flipping the label around and just reading it goes a long way. So I would definitely spend that time reading what you're putting inside you if you want to benefit from fat loss and prioritize protein in your meals. So got it. That's her take on it, man.
Perfect. Shall we move on? I say shall. We shall. Okay. So, next question. 3 foods that you would avoid while cutting. Now, before we get into this, the first thing that I want to mention is that technically, you don't have to necessarily avoid any food while you're cutting. It's just that because your calories are lower when you're cutting compared to when you're trying to maintain or even gain weight, you just have less wiggle room for very calorically dense foods. So, technically you can fit them in. You don't have to completely avoid any foods. I would say these are going to be foods that we would recommend maybe minimizing. Not cutting out, but at least minimizing. So yeah, you have a food to go over?
So I want to bounce off what you were saying. Like, there isn't a specific food that I would avoid. I mean, I guess if I had to like list 3,
Just go based off of like when you cut.
so I would definitely just any calorically dense food, because those add up very, very quickly. So like pastries,
Oh yeah.
candy, fast food, like those things add up very quickly.
Sounds like you're just naming off all the tasty stuff.
All the crazy. I mean, hey, it's that stuff, man. It adds up. It adds up very, very quickly. So like, I think the lowest calorie donut at Dunkin' Donuts is like 270 calories, and those things are like this big.
Yeah.
Like, they're not big at all. Whereas if you eat 270 calories worth of lean meat and vegetables, the volume is significant. So I mean, there isn't like a specific foods I would avoid. It's just anything that's just calorically dense, anything that's just like this little amount for that high of calories, stay away. So yeah, like pastries, fast food, candy, things like that. That's just gonna. There's many things that you could. There's alternatives that could help, with your sweet tooth.
Yes.
There's many things that you could do, like lower calorie. So like pizza, for instance. Obviously, pizza is high in calories, and there's alternatives to making pizza if you want to get like that fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the alternative?
Lavish bread pizza.
Lavish bread.
Or lavash,
However you can say it, however you want to say it.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, use the lavash flatbread.
Yeah.
Right. And then what do you do for the cheese?
Fat-free cheddar or mozzarella.
Yeah.
Or you can do both.
Yeah,
It's like 35 calories a tablespoon or something.
Yeah, so if you're using a food scale, which I recommend people do, at least for a short period of time, just so you can get an idea of portion sizes. The fat-free shredded mozzarella is 45 calories per serving versus a full-fat version being like around 100 or so. So it's less than half the calories. So you can use the same amount and cut the cheese calories in half, or you can get the same amount of calories and have double the cheese.
I like double cheese.
I do too.
I like double cheese. Jumping on back on that food scale comment, what I like to tell people, like when about implementing food scale, when they're, because it literally takes like 10 seconds, but implementing the food scale to some people, it's like a chore. But what I like to do is tell them, imagine a drug dealer just eyeballing their portions. Like, this looks like a kilo to me, so like you're either giving too much or too less, so like that's the same way with food. Like, you don't want to play the guessing game when it comes to, especially when you're on a fat loss phase. You don't want to just eyeball things and just guess, like, this looks like 35 grams to me. Yeah, this looks like a tablespoon to me. You're just setting yourself up for failure. So just adding that extra 10 seconds to just weighing at your portion, it goes a long way. It's just consistency. Consistency is the key to almost anything. In any journey, any phase you're in, just being consistent and just staying on track, it goes a long way. Obviously, there's no such thing as an overnight success. You're not going to see significant progress in a week, but if you allow yourself to be consistent over time, you'll see that data and you'll be like, wow, like it's totally worth it. So just being patient, staying consistent, not eyeballing things and playing the guessing game. Like, there's a reason why people who use food scales versus don't use food scales see progress.
Yeah, I know I use a food scale. I know many of my clients who are successful are willing to use food scales. And I get it can seem maybe a little bit overwhelming or like extra work. I mean, yeah, technically it takes a few extra seconds to do that, but you could take a few extra seconds to weigh out your portions, or you can take a few extra years of going, absolutely nowhere. And to bounce off of what you said earlier about, you mentioned something about tablespoons, right?
Yeah.
And, using tablespoons and using cups could be a pretty decent way to measure your portions, but you have to take into consideration that when you look on a food label, and it tells you that the serving size is, let's just say 32 grams, just making up a random number, and then next to it, it'll say 2 tablespoons. The 32 grams is the actual serving size.
Yeah.
The tablespoons are estimates or estimations based off of that number. So if you have a calorically dense food, let's just say peanut butter. Peanut butter is roughly 200 calories, maybe a little more, maybe a little bit less, roughly 200 calories for 32 grams. Right?
God.
Think about 32 grams or 2 tablespoons worth, right? That's nothing, right? So if you use tablespoons rather than weigh it out, well, you might be off by 8 grams. You might be off by 9 grams if your scoop is a little bit bigger. And realistically, when you're in a fat loss phase and you're hungry, you are not shorting yourself. If anything, you're going to take a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Right? So being 8 grams over, oh, okay, that doesn't seem like that much. That's only like 50 calories more, right? Well, imagine doing that with multiple ingredients in a meal, multiple times throughout the day. You might end up logging in MyFitnessPal that you had, let's just say 1,700 calories is your goal, but really you had 2,200 calories, right? You could be hundreds of calories off at the end of the day if you aren't tracking accurately.
Right? You're eating a surplus.
Right. That could be, and if you're, let's just say a smaller, leaner female, your maintenance calories might be 2,000 calories or a tad less, right? So you might be logging that you had 1,600 or 1,700 calories, but because you're not willing to use the food scale and because you aren't tracking as accurately as you think you are, you're really finishing your days with 2,100 calories, 2,000 calories, 2,200 calories. Maybe some days you are a little bit more accurate and you're finishing with 1,900 calories. And you're putting in all of this effort and you're taking all of this time. And after weeks and months, nothing's changing.
Wonder why.
Right? You don't want to take the extra few seconds to just use the food scale, but you're willing to waste weeks, months, and years. So just use the food scale. Just use it. It's not that hard.
It's really not. I got one for home in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I got one on the go. It's always in my bag. Never know when you need to weigh something out.
Got the backup food scale.
You got the backup food scale. You got the traveling. You got the traveling food scale. You got the at-home food scale. Never know when you need to weigh up some jerky on the go.
Yep. All right. I say we move on to the next question.
Let's do it.
Let's see. How are we doing on time?
You're at 33 minutes.
33 minutes. We only answered 3 questions. All right. I say let's do one more question.
I'm with it.
We'll take some time to discuss that. We have a few questions left, but what we'll do is we'll save it for a future episode. So,
Let's do it.
let's talk a little bit about training.
I like it.
I like to train.
I like to train too.
Okay, next question. If my form is correct, and I still don't feel my muscles being stressed, am I doing it wrong? You probably get this a lot, right? With your clients, they're doing a movement and they don't really feel it, but they're doing it right.
So there's a misconception definitely that you need to feel the burn or the pump in order to get an effective workout. That's not necessarily true. So because that question wasn't specific about the workout, compound lifts spread the tension across many muscles, right? So if you're doing a squat, you're not just isolating one specific muscle group in your legs. You're using basically almost every muscle group. Yeah, the tension, using a lot of the tension is spread across your legs. Whereas, let's say you're doing bicep curls, right? You're really isolating the brachii, so you're gonna feel that a little bit more. Now, if the form is correct, I think what is happening is either assuming you're a beginner, your form I would say your form is probably off just a little bit. Like, you're probably thinking you're doing it right, but there's a better way of performing the exercise. Or two, you're probably using a little bit too much momentum.
Yeah.
So the tempo is a little bit off. And also, kind of drawing a blank here.
Yeah. I think that maybe one reason why some people don't feel their muscles working, you mentioned something about beginners, so that's why I'm thinking about this right now, is maybe you just don't have that much muscle, right?
Maybe.
So, if you're doing whatever exercise, let's just say we're talking about a squat, like maybe you don't feel it all too much in your quads, or maybe you don't feel it all too much in your glutes because you still have that much muscle yet, and you need to just take some time to actually progressively overload, stay consistent, and as you get more experience, you may develop the skill of the mind-muscle connection.
Yeah.
But it's not always something that just comes just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that pops up into my head is the rep range is probably going to factor in as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I was thinking about that. With the rep range, the weight also might be a little too light to get like a meaningful stimulus. So if you're finishing your sets with like 4 to 5, like you feel like you could have banged out 4 to 5 reps, that adds up over time.
Yeah.
That adds up way over time. And obviously, like you were saying, with the rep range, you're probably, again, you're not going to an extent to where you're going to get a meaningful stimulus, right? So personally, what I would do, if you're I would say if you're not a beginner and you wanted to fix some things up, what I would do is slowly eccentric. Get like 2 to 3 seconds, like a nice little pause at the hardest point of your lift. So if you're doing like a preacher curl, hold the eccentric for a second, like get like that like 2 to 3 second pause, and then accelerate back up. Also, what I would do is slightly increase the load. If you feel like, again, you're ending your sets with at least 4 to 5 reps in the tank, the load needs to go up a little bit more, because for muscle growth, you really want to train close, near, or to failure. So you want to train to about 0 to 1 reps in reserve, at most 2.
Yeah.
So like training close to failure is really how you're going to get a meaningful stimulus. And like I said before, you don't have to feel the pump or the burn to get an effective workout. But if this is happening all the time, then there's some things that need to be switched up. Like I said, slowing the eccentric, adding a little bit load, training close to failure. So like increasing the load will allow you to get close, near, or to failure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you take a set of bicep curls to failure, maybe you don't feel it during the set, like depending on the rep range that you're choosing, but I mean, you're definitely going to feel that right after.
100%.
Right. And then with the rep ranges, one of the things that I wanted to mention was that, if you're doing a high or a moderately high rep set, let's just say you're doing sets of about 12 to 15, which are good. I have a lot of my clients work in the 12 to 15 rep range. I have my clients work in various rep ranges. But let's just say you're doing a set of bicep curls in the 12 to 15 rep range. Because you're doing so many reps, you're probably more likely to feel that burning sensation in the muscle. But if you're somebody like, let's just say you and I, we do a lot of our work in the 4 to 10 rep range. We might finish a set to failure at 5 reps. So maybe during the set, we don't really feel the muscle working. It doesn't mean that you aren't building muscle, right? Because the primary driver of muscle growth is not sensation, it's mechanical tension. You want your muscle fibers that have the highest potential for growth, so your fast twitch muscle fibers, to experience that tension. And the only way to do that is to take your sets to failure, or within a few reps from failure.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Anything else you want to add on to that?
We covered everything. Just you can't end your sets feeling like you could have done more. Like if you aren't fatigued or like close to like you're not, like you're feeling like, damn, like that was tough. Like I need a minute or two to get my heart rate down so that way I could go into the next set with the same intensity. If you're not feeling that, then you're just cheating yourself out of true muscle growth. You know, like someone like that trains almost like us, like training to failure, is gonna experience muscle growth significantly faster than someone that's just like, I'm just gonna just bang this out real quick, and I could have maybe had done 20 of these, but I'm gonna stop at 15.
Yeah, just to stop for the sake of being at 15 reps.
Yeah, like if my rep range is 15, I'm just gonna bang this out to 15, just like that, you know. So like you're cheating yourself. So what I would recommend, again, slow eccentric at the hardest point. Increase the load just slightly if you feel like you're ending your rep range. If you feel like you're ending your sets and you feel like you could have done more. And yeah, training to failure, like that's how you're really gonna get that sensation that, you know, you want to feel, that burn, that pump, right? Everyone wants to feel that. Take your sets to failure.
Yeah. There was something else I was going to mention, and it's not coming up in my head right now. Maybe we'll cover it in the next episode. Let's see. So you were mentioning something about slowing down the eccentric and pausing at the bottom of a curl, and I think that's a good idea. The one thing that you have to be mindful of or cautious of is that you're not so overly focused on getting that sensation that it takes away from the effort that you're able to put into your set. Because if you get, let's just say, too much of a burning sensation, and that stops you from taking your sets to failure, then who cares about the sensation, right?
And absolutely,
you know what I mean? You got to take your sets to failure or close to failure if you want a stimulus, right? Yeah. So generally, I recommend training either to failure or maybe up to about 2 reps in reserve. Technically, you can build muscle if you're training like 3 or 4 reps away from failure as well. But the problem is that that's kind of hard to gauge, right? It's kind of tough to gauge when you're exactly 4 reps away. But when you're talking about being 1 or 2 reps away, you can gauge that. You can gauge, oh, okay, I just finished the set. I probably could have done 1 more.
I don't think I'd ever done a set and was like, wow, I could have definitely done 4.
It's so exact. I could have done 4 reps.
4 reps, I mean, right there.
2 half harshes. Yeah.
I always feel like every time like I take my sets, like if I'm taking it near failure, I end up, I'm like, I could have done 1, 2, but never I'm like, yeah, I could have done 4.
Anything else you want to add to that?
Or take your sets to failure.
Take your sets to failure. We're close. That's it. Close. That's it. All right. I think we have been going for quite some time now. I think we're coming up on, the 40-minute mark?
We have 45.
You're allowed to talk in this, Mark. Shout out to Mark. Camera guy, man.
Mark Tarantino.
Without Mark, we wouldn't be able to record this on that crazy camera that he has over there. We would have to use an iPhone.
You guys have no idea the camera we're looking at right now.
Which, you know what? An iPhone has a pretty good camera. I think we might have to fire Mark.
Mark, you're fired.
No, shout out to Mark. He's the man.
He is the best. Milano, _digital? Yep. Milano_digital for all your camera works, all your editing needs. This guy gets it going.
He's the man. All right, so that's it for the first episode of the Charles and Nick Roundtable. I think I mentioned earlier that we're going to do this once per month. Not every episode is going to be a Q&A like this. We would like to be able to have some guests on here, and we have a potential guest for the next...
We do.
We do.
We could just shoot the S.
And we could just shoot the S. So, that's it. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, like it and share it with somebody else.
Guys, thank you for tuning in. Can't wait for the next one. Share this with your friends that have any fitness questions, that, want to either get into fitness, have any nutrition questions. Share this with them, when you're driving to work. Like, yo, I want to tune into the roundtable.
Listen to this on your way to work. All right. Adios.
See you guys. Thank you for tuning in.